How do you use emotions effectively in storytelling? A very good day to all of you. This is Dan, ready to answer this very specific question which a lot of you had sent across. Emotions are a very important part of storytelling, and if you know how to use emotions effectively, you know how to speak to the hearts of the audience. I use two very specific principles when I use emotions in my stories. Number one, I have something called an emotional threshold. So when I'm talking about a negative emotion, I never go below this threshold. This is why in a lot of my speeches, I never talk about extreme loss, extreme failures, and extreme tragedies. When you talk about an extreme experience, that emotion has to be extreme. And when you have an extreme emotion, a very sharp emotion below the emotional threshold, the audience tends to dwell in that story and in that emotion, even though you have now moved on from that story. So they effectively stop following you and get stuck in that extreme emotion. Now, you don't want that to happen. You want your audience to follow your speech. So remember, have an emotional threshold where you don't talk about an extreme emotion, extreme to a level where the audience just simply dwells there while you move on with your speech. Now, number two, have a balance. You should always have an anti-climax, which is a negative emotion, sadness, anger, frustration. You should balance that out with victory, happiness, and joy. Sometimes I see speeches where the emotion curve is just going down, 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 and it stops at the bottom. So the audience is left with a feeling of confusion, sadness, anger, or sorrow. But a good speaker always has a balance. Talk about a negative, sad emotion, balance that out with the positive emotion at the end. So it's more of like a curve that goes down and goes up again. So the trick is have a balance and end your speech in a climax. Now, these are two principles that I use when I use emotion in my stories, and I hope these two principles will help you when you craft your speech. So check your speech. Number one, emotional threshold. Avoid extremes. Number two, have a balance. If you're talking about a negative emotion, balance that out with a positive emotion at the end. This is Dan signing out. Till we meet again next week.